For this week's video, it was my aim to try something different. Instead of picking one build and making minor adjustments throughout the playthrough, I decided that for every boss I fight, I would have a whole new build. This would be a rather nice way to showcase all the builds I've done in the past, while showing you a nice weapon matchup to many of the most important bosses in the game. And in order to make sure I don't use the same 4 weapons every time, like the Antspur Rapier, the Claymore, the Dark Moon Greatsword, and the Zweihander, I will be switching the weapon type I'm using for every boss. So every time I face an enemy with a health bar at the bottom of the screen, I have to use a weapon type I have not touched yet in that run. So in the following clips, I can show you nice weapon type matchups against the bosses at Max New Game Plus RL 170. If I ended up having a very nice fight, I'll show it in its entirety. So I hope you enjoy the following clips. The first thing I had to do was get to Renala. So Red Wolf was the first fight. I used the Dryleaf Art, a hand-to-hand weapon here, because I haven't used it too much, and this fight is not difficult. But next, for the Renala fight, I used curved swords, the Falx. I will let the fight speak for itself. With respec now available, I went back to fight Margit. For him, I used a colossal weapon, a tank build, and the goofiest colossal in the game, the Gazing Finger. If you don't like this weapon a lot, read the Ash of War description and you will. Even on Max New Game Plus, Margit doesn't do that much damage, so it was easy to tank him with only a handful of buffs. Next was Godric, and with my route throughout this game, I didn't end up fighting any dragons. So I used the Dragon Halberd here. It was nice to have the Frostbite, and use the unique Lightning on this weapon that you can only find in a few other places. Now for the only weapon I have yet to use, the Lightning Perfume Bottle on the Loretta Ghost fight. This fight takes place atop water, so you get an extra buff to lightning damage, and still at Max New Game Plus does not have that much health. Because there's a talisman that gives a flat boost to perfume damage, and we can use the Lightning Shroud and Cracked here, I was doing acceptable damage with the Lightning Perfume Bottle. Perhaps I'll try it in a full game run sometime. Next, starting Ronnie's questline, I used the Crescent Moon Axe on the Mad Pumpkinhead. I didn't really have a specific place for great axes here, so I figured might as well use it now. And a lot of people left comments about how they love the Crescent Moon Axe. Even though I barely knew this weapon existed, despite it being swung at my face so many times at Stormvale Castle. But like a comment suggested, I put Flaming Strike on it, and it made an easy fight even easier. For Radahn, I knew I wanted to use a Reaper. My plan was to use the Halo Scythe, but I didn't have one on this character and I was too lazy to farm for it. So the Obsidian Lamina took this spot instead. I missed the ranged Ash of War, but the additional source of iframes was nice. Radahn is weak to status effects, and if you can inflict a few on him throughout the fight, you're not going to see that much of a challenge. Next was the longest fight in the game, Vike's War Spear on the Mimic tier. I had the scaled armor on, so the Mimic tier also had really heavy damage resistance. It came down to inflicting madness on the enemy more than I had madness inflicted on myself. Yeah, really boring long fight. But it's one of 2 where I get to use madness, so that's why I chose it here. Then I decided to use the Zweihander. I destroyed the Baleful Shadows with it, and brought it into the Estelle fight. Throwing Giant Hunt on it makes it easier to hit Estelle's head. The light and heavy attacks are slow, and not great for countering some of Estelle's faster attacks, like his Jaw Snaps or Waves of Darkness. But with the high damage I was putting out, that didn't matter. If I don't use a huge weapon in this fight, with a lot of poise-breaking potential, I love using something with a status effect. Most notably, Bleed or Scarlet Rot, because Estelle is only immune to Frostbite. Speaking of Frostbite, Draconic Tree Sentinel, I used the Ice Rind Hatchet for my axe weapon. Whenever you fight him, you want to stay on his shield side. And then there's 2 tactics I prefer to use. Either use a huge weapon, like a Zweihander, that can stun him out of animations. The Ash of War Giant Hunt can do this. Or you can use a smaller, faster weapon, like the Ice Rind Hatchet, so you can dodge those swings with the colossal weapon. Whichever tactic you choose, you won't have too much issue with DTS. As long as you know the timing to dodge that long-range lightning strike, you'll be fine. Next, maybe the most fun weapon I've used so far, the Carian Regal Scepter. You may think to yourself, oh, that's really easy, just put Carian Slicer on it, or no, I'm just using the weapon. And the Ash of War spinning weapon. If you spec into intelligence and boost up your magic damage and the Ash of War, spinning weapon does a lot of damage. That's how I took out the Erdtree Avatar, the Knight, and eventually the next boss health bar, Goldfree. I could have used anything here. Goldfree is an easy fight no matter what you do, so I thought it would be funny to use a staff without any spells. Now for the first of two instances where I used a boss weapon against them. For the curved greatsword, I used Morgott's Cursed Sword against Morgott. We can bleed him plenty, and the Ash of War on the weapon, Cursed Blood Slice, brings us forward as we cast it. So we got a lot of damage done with the Ash of War, and a lot of status effects to finish this fight quickly. Now, I always recommend you have these on you, but they might be best in the Morgott fight. Morgott will create distance somewhat frequently, so have Kukris on you. These keep his poise down, and in this case, add some bleed buildup. I wasn't quite sure where to use backhand blades, but I figured the Nile fight would be fine for it. There's plenty of time to wail on him and build up that successive attack power. So while he was making his huge swings with his halberd, I was pumping my attack power up and up and up. But there are better weapons to use on Nile. I was simply saving that for Moog, which turned out to be the easiest fight in the game with the Claws of Night, a bleed procking, massive successive attack power build. I'll let it speak for itself. Once again, with another successive attack power monster, I used a Faith build and the Erdsteel Dagger against Mesmer. This weapon still holds my fastest kill for his boss fight, so I will show this one in its entirety as well. Uncharged dagger double swiping heavy attacks are the best way I've found to take him out so far. For Romina, I used the Great Katana with overhead stance to slash down on her every once in a while. She is susceptible to statuses like Bleed and Frost, so I had a Cold Infusion on it. Anything with statuses or fire damage is great against her, but I do have to say, I'm really not a fan of this fight. This is the only boss encounter throughout my playthroughs where the frames dip consistently, if they do at all during any of the other fights. Now for a fight I like much better, Promised Consort Radahn. I've used the Anspur Rapier on him more than once, but I have never tried the triple status buildup. Have a Bleed Infusion with Poison Mist, along with the innate Scarlet Rot buildup. Now, did I first try him? Yeah, about half of my playthroughs I do. Did I play well during the fight? Nope. Did it matter? Also no. Because having 3 status effects and pierce damage against him is the easiest way to clear his fight. If you're having trouble with this boss and don't want to completely cheese it, use the Anspur Rapier. Whether it is a triple status build or a Cold Infusion, use whichever you prefer. Now for Loretta Haligtree, I used the Cross Naginata. This has innate bleed on it, and I Cold Infused it, so I had 2 status effects going. What was really important here was the Ash of War I used. Piercing Fang does great poise damage, and also can be aimed a lot better than Impaling Thrust. Once you tap the Ash of War button, Impaling Thrust can only change its angle so much, but with Piercing Fang, you can turn around 180 or 360 degrees with it. And in this Loretta fight, I find myself getting turned around a lot, so having an Ash of War I can cast in any direction is a huge boon. Next, for Malenia, I was debating on which katana to use. I knew I was going to use this weapon class, but was debating between a couple weapons. In the end, I had to settle for Hand of Malenia. It is her own weapon, and has much better range than the Uchi katana, which is the other weapon I wanted to use. Malenia is susceptible to bleed, and the running two-handed heavy attacks can poke her at nearly any time in the fight. So keep up that pressure, you'll get poise breaks, bleed procs, and you may even be able to finish her off with a waterfowl dance. Now for Fire Giant, I didn't feel like fighting him normally, so I used the Godskin Peeler. Black Flame Tornado allows you to barely even fight him. Black Flame does % health damage, and you can stand by his weak spot in phase 1, or underneath his legs in phase 2. Doesn't matter if you're hitting the weak spot there, you'll do your % health damage, drain several thousand points away from his HP on every cast, and finish this fight in record time. I love owning the Godskin duo. So this is where I finally used a greatsword weapon, Death's Poker. Use some sleep pots to line up both foes, and then next to the Noble, cast Ghost Flame Ignition so that it hits the Apostle. The Noble has more health, and since you're doing more damage to him, both of them will expire at roughly the same time, draining 3/4 of their health even on max New Game Plus. This is my favorite way to trivialize their encounter. Now for Malekith, there's two things you want to watch out for. His 80% holy resistance, and weapons with short ranges. Standing under him locked on with something like a fist weapon, you'll miss quite a few times. So that's why I used the Lord Sworn Straight Sword with Square Off. The Ash of War had some nice reach to it, and the Straight Sword moveset has fast attacks. On lower New Game Plus levels, you'll be poise breaking him like crazy. For both the heavy and light follow-up for Square Off, does crazy poise damage. Now for Gideon. If you are in New Game Plus and don't want to fight him at all, use Marika's Hammer. See the following.
Lord, what a sad state of affairs. I commend your spirit to us. She'll take the throne. Queen Marika's hammer. We continue to struggle. To eternity. In my bones.
Now for Godfrey. There's only one way to fight Godfrey properly. That's with fist weapons. I had on the Star Fists I used a little while ago, and preferred the heavy charged attacks. This did both poise damage and bleed to him, and it was nice to fight fist versus fist. So what did I use for the final fight in the game? A light greatsword, of course. I fell in love with Milady on the first DLC playthrough, and cleared the Radabeast fight without getting hit on my first try. So light greatsword use during the final fight gels well with me. This was not a hitless fight. The first time I fought them, I used Impaling Thrust instead of Wing Stance, but it was much more stylish. So I hope you all enjoyed this rather weird video. I'll have something much more normal for you next week. I'm not going to be around on the weekend when I usually record and make these videos, so I wanted to do something low stress where I use great weapons against every boss. Do let me know your favorites down below, or if there's any type matchups you would change. And as always, for more build and Souls-like videos like this, every single Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, be sure to like and subscribe to The Jersey Side.